Welcome to this live talk from the Women's Forum. My name is Tessa. I'm part of the content team here at the Women's Forum, and I am really thrilled to be joined by Aliza Knox, who is our guest this live talk. So our community, we hold online, regular online and in-person events. Please feel free to follow us and to keep track of all of our upcoming events with inspiring leaders from our community. So today, as I say, we're joined by Aliza Knox, who has built and led APAC businesses for 3 of the world's top technology firms, including Google, Twitter, and Cloudflare. She was named in 2020 APAC's Women of the Year and has spent decades as a global finance consulting executive and is now a non-executive board director. Aliza, would you like to say a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Tessa. It's great to be here. As Tessa said, I'm Aliza Knox. I came to tech sort of late in life. For those of you who might be in tech, you'll know that there are software releases. So I've now say that I'm Aliza 3.0. So 1.0 was consulting and financial services. 2.0 was tech, and now I'm in 3.0, which is figuring out what to do when I grow up. But so far involves having written a book called Don't Quit Your Day Job and sitting on corporate boards and doing a bunch of mentoring. And I've had the good fortune to go to several of in-person meetups, including one where everybody came to Singapore last year. So with the Women's Forum, and it was great. So I'm very honored to be here.
Thank you again for joining us. And as Aliza mentioned, on top of everything that she's achieved, she's also written this fabulous book called Don't Quit Your Day Job. And the book outlines 6 key mind shifts that we can all make to thrive in our careers. So we're going to be asking Aliza a few questions. And at the end, we're going to have a Q&A session. So for all of you watching, if you'd like to put your questions into the chat, and at the end, we'll have a look at all of our questions with Aliza. So Aliza, what made you write this book, and what was your writing journey?
Well, so what made me write the book was that because, okay, I fixed this. So this is the book. If you happen to want to read it, it's in libraries, so you don't need to buy it. I found that because I've been in sales for a long time as a woman, because I've been in tech, maybe because I have a number of years of experience under my belt, 40 years of full-time work, people come to me a lot to ask for advice or to ask questions. And I find that I'm often repeating myself, maybe because I'm not clever at coming up with new answers, or maybe because people are asking the same question. So I thought I should write it down. There's 2 reasons for this. One is usually people ask me out for coffee, and people who know me know I'm not really a coffee drinker. In my old age, I have learned to drink like decaf latte, which is a big thing of milk where they just wave the coffee over it. Or I guess you guys are in France, café au lait. It would be close. But it's not my favorite. And the other, which is more important, is that anybody who's in tech knows that you have to be scalable, right? That's how tech companies succeed. And it's not scalable to go out for coffee with people. If you say an hour per person and you can't spend 24 hours a day drinking coffee, you can't really reach that many people. And I thought maybe some of this advice would be worth it to other people whom I don't know or whom I can't reach, or who aren't going to ask me for coffee. And so I wrote it down. In terms of my journey, I'm not that much of a writer. I've spent my career writing business memos, so short, sharp, to the point, and not writing a lot of prose, I suppose, since university. So I did get some help. I worked with a woman named Wendy Paris, who is officially a ghostwriter, only she's not a ghost on my book because it doesn't, bother me to have her name on the front page. So we shared, and she was a great partner to work with and really helped me, I think, say what I wanted to in my own voice. The only funny thing is there is an Audible version of the book, And because it was published originally in Australia, the person who reads it is Australian. So it's in my voice in terms of the things I talk about, but it's not in my voice if you listen to it, because you'll hear an Aussie accent. And in the end, the main idea was to get across these 6 sort of mind shifts and make them relatable. Most of the book is stories. It's not, here's some theory about how to live your life. It's, here are some things I've ascertained over 4 decades of working that might be usable to you. I'm hoping that basically people who read the book have one nugget, or maybe people who listen to this talk, one nugget they can take away for now and use, and maybe something else that sticks in their mind and comes back to them a week, a month, a year, 5 years from now that is useful. And so the way I tried to illustrate everything was by telling stories. I'd say about 60% of them are women, 40% men. They're from different people from around the world. I suppose a little more heavily in tech. And they're meant to be that you can maybe see yourself, the reader can see themselves in something there and find a way to think about how it relates to their situation.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for telling us a little about your book. And it sounds like there's something for everyone to pick up from it. That sounds great. In your book, one of the key messages is about the importance of resilience and stamina. So why were those in particular such important elements for you?
I guess one of the things I've learned over the years is that even the best, hardest working team members, at great companies can struggle with resilience and enthusiasm. And I'm not sure, the world's changing really quickly. And I'm not sure that the way we've trained people over time is strong enough for the journey we're all on today. So we're in a lot of companies with a lot of change. We have outside pressure, we have uncertainty. There's a lot of opportunity, which is fantastic, but we also have macroeconomic slowdowns. We've got war. Every company has competition. We have the advent of AI. We have a lot of focus on ESG and particularly climate change, which I believe is really important, but it's just a lot of change to take in and adjust to. So what I thought I might do today is share some lessons learned over these past 40 plus years now for me on how to build and retain resilience and enjoy your job and your life at the same time. So I tried to write this equation, which I'm hoping is going to be right up there with Einstein and E equals MC squared, although I think it's probably not going to happen. But stamina equals perseverance plus enthusiasm. So I think, there are lots of authors more famous than me, Angela Duckworth, who talks about grit. And stamina, but it's not just hanging in there, because 30 to 40 years is a long time to work for most people. And not every day is going to be a good day. So it's like, how do you show up every day, even on the bad days or the lull periods or the slumps, and have enough enthusiasm to keep going? So I'll just tell you a couple stories. The first one's about me, just so that you know that I'm not just talking about other people. I worked for 13 years at a place called the Boston Consulting Group, which is a top tier strategy firm, or at least we like to think it is. And I'm a senior advisor there now, so I still am loyal. And when I was in the process of rising up, it was up or out and it was only strategy at the time. There are now other parts of the firm. And so when you get to partner, and it was much smaller, but I think even now people know, as they often do at a law firm or an accounting firm, that you're up for partner. And when you're up, there's a group of partners that will decide if you get promoted. So I did not make it the first time. There were 4 of us in the Australian practice, or basically all of Asia, who were up for partner, and 3 men and me. And I didn't get it. So two of the guys made partner, and then another guy and I did not. And so it's not only disappointing in the sense that I wanted to be a partner and I didn't make it, but it's humiliating, or it was to me, because people know that I'm up for partner and I didn't make it. So, I have a couple options. One of the guys left, a guy who didn't make it. I think he felt, I don't think he left because he was embarrassed. He just felt, well, I'm not going to make it, and I can do other things. I really wanted to be a partner at BCG. I really liked the firm. I really thought I could do it, and I stuck it out. And I had to stick it out with some sort of enthusiasm to keep going, to keep working on it. And I did, you have a couple tries, I did get promoted the next time. And when I had tried to get feedback at that stage, it was a little unclear. So I didn't have, I think they're much better at it now. I didn't have that many specific things to work on. There was some mention that maybe I was too informal. Someone said, you know, you kiss your clients. And I was like, yeah, well, they kiss me, you know, and I don't have a beard like you guys. So it's like they're kissing me on my cheeks. Nothing else is involved. So it was a little bit hard, but I had the stamina. I stuck in there. I did make partner. I stayed for another 5 years and only left because I wanted to try being an operator. I love BCG as a firm, and I'm so glad I stuck it out. Then I give you another example of a young woman who I wrote about in the book, who is not named Barbara, but she asked me not to use her real name. And somebody had sent me to talk to her because she was at a tech firm and she was being layered over. So in other words, they were bringing in somebody over her. This was a tech firm that was growing rapidly, not one of the ones I was at, although they did grow rapidly. But somebody I knew her and asked me to talk to her. And she said, oh, I've got to leave. They're bringing somebody in over me to be head of sales. And it's just not going to work. It's demeaning. It's demoralizing. I'm going to go somewhere else. And the gist of what I said to her over a couple chat sessions was like, listen, I know you feel that it's a put down, but actually, you know, you're in your late 20s, and I don't want to be ageist, but you don't have as much experience as the person they're bringing in over you. I happen to know the gentleman they're bringing in over you. He's a fantastic leader, loves to develop people, takes a lot of pride in it. And I think you might learn something from him. You know, you can quit later. And this is just a bit about the title of the book, Don't Quit Your Day Job. It's not saying never quit, but sometimes it may not be the best solution. It wasn't the best solution for me when I was at BCG. It wasn't in the end for Barbara. I'm sure it goes beyond me having spoken to her, but Barbara decided to stay at work, give it all she had, enthusiastically persevere. And she actually loved working for the new guy. She stayed quite a long time, got 2 promotions under him, including one while she was on maternity leave, which shouldn't be worth mentioning, but I think unfortunately it still is. Not always that usual, and it was great. And my view is that she got much further in her career than she would have if she'd left. She's very smart. She's very good. If she had left at that point, another firm would have hired her, another smaller firm that was growing quickly. And then the same thing would have happened again. They would have said, gosh, we might need somebody with a bit more experience, a bit more gravitas, somebody who's been at a bigger firm as we get bigger. And she would have had this perhaps endless cycle of being head of sales, but at smaller firms. As it happens, she was head of sales at much larger firms and did really well. And I think it was because she decided to persevere and she had stamina. So what are the key takeaways? Put some energy into building up your stamina, make time for self-care and outside things that give you energy. It could be sleep, it could be exercise, it could be a book club, it could be knitting. Even if you're a parent, you probably need some time just for you. Set some boundaries. You know, you can't, any company will ask you to work 24 hours a day. Try to keep some time for yourself, whether that's that hour to go to the gym, you know, your sleep time. You shouldn't be doing a midnight and a 6 a.m. every day. Maybe keep a compliments folder. Write down when people say something nice to you. Most of us forget when that happens. We remember the things that are, you know, developmental needs, or when someone says something mean, but actually you probably have people say nice things to you a lot. You can return the favor, write it down and look it up when you're having a down day. And do remember that there's always a bit of luck. There's a guy, Dan Springer, who's the CEO of DocuSign, said, I do think you have to be in a position where you accept that both good fortune and bad fortune will come your way. You can't get overly down or overly up and get complacent. You have to have that energy to keep charging ahead. So that stamina, that energy, that enthusiasm, I think is the most important aspect of having a long and fulfilling career. And there's lots more detail in books or various articles that you can pick up.
Thank you, Aliza, for speaking to the value in stamina when in the right organization, when examining your next career steps and not immediately taking a leap off the boat. Can you maybe give us a couple of other takeaways, key takeaways from your book?
Sure. One of them is thinking about nurturing your relationship with your career the way you might with another person. So if you read most of what's written about having a relationship with another person, I think, I'm not a psychologist and I'm probably not as deeply read as some experts, but, everything from magazines to self-help books say you can't expect everything from a partner, right? That dooms the relationship. They fill some of your needs and you need to find ways to fill others of them. And I think a career is in some ways the same. We talk about climbing a career ladder and, it is a theoretical thing, a career. It's not an object like a ladder, and you have to feed it. And so a couple examples I can give. I know somebody in Singapore who is a professor, and really her main passion, the thing that she likes to do most, is to ride horses and to play polo, actually. And that's not something, I suppose, I've never looked into it, but that a lot of people can make into a career. I think some people, there are professional equestrians, there are jockeys, there are horse trainers, but probably from what I've heard about people who like horseback riding, there are more people who like to horseback ride and do things with horses than there are careers. So this solution is, look, I have this great career. I love teaching. I love writing. She's written a couple really well-respected books. She has a great career at a business school, well-liked. She likes her students, but she also earns enough money to keep horses, not in Singapore. It's not really a good place to have horses, very small island country, if you haven't been here. Also not great weather, but she gets these long vacations at the breaks between semesters or trimesters. So she can have this career that she really likes, as well as having this passion, things that she wants outside her career to sort of feed her energy, give her energy. There's another woman I know in Australia this time who has built a business, and she's probably, I guess, 8 years into it. She had enough time and could delegate enough to do what she really wanted to do, which is work on helping new Australians, which is a nicer word than we used to use for immigrants, basically. So asylum seekers, refugees, new Australians coming in, wanting to make a life in Australia. And she had a real passion around this. For those of you who don't know, Australia has had this period of keeping people on a not very nice island called Nauru off the coast. And really, she wanted to help repair, bring those people in, help them learn the ways of Australia. And she has gone on to be chair of an organization that is a bakery where at least half the people at all times are new Australians. They often go on to manage, to go into other food service in Australia, or while they're doing that, so they can earn a living and support their families, they're retraining because they were teachers or doctors or doing whatever they needed to do to have that career in Australia. And because she could delegate at her company, she was able to do that. So she really nurtured both these women. They're women in this case, but I have examples of men who've done it too, said, what do I need? What can I get from my career? I want the financial part. I want the excitement of publishing books. I want the kudos of running a company. But I also want these other things, and I can't get them all from my career. And I think that for a lot of people, there's been this buildup that, oh, you should be able to get everything from your career. And I think it's often unrealistic. And so this idea of saying, I want some things from my career, and I'm going to get some of them, my goal orientation, my financial needs, my desire to be recognized for achievement. And then for other things, I'm going to get it outside my career. So that's one of them. The other one, another one that I'll talk about is, you work in a tech firm. We have all these tech tools. Now we have generative AI, a lot of things we can do without other people. But I also think connecting with people is really valuable. Priska was saying that the Women's Forum just had the first in-person meeting for a long time because we all kind of fell away from it over COVID. And this kind of session is great over Zoom because we can connect from different parts of the world. But there is really something about meeting other people in the moment. And I think we drew down on social capital a lot during COVID, and we're building it back up. And so I really think about, we all talk about capital in finance or capital in our businesses, but I like talking about social capital, and it can be accidental. Like I traveled with this guy, Rahul, a lot in the beginning at Google when I was running Asia. I got him to come to Asia with me, and he was so good. We had so much fun together, whether it was actually working on stuff where he was sales ops, delivering numbers for me, or getting stuck in taxis in countries where we didn't speak the language together, that we were stuck in this not stuck, we were in a revolving door. I sort of had him stuck in Beijing, those big kinds where you have more than one person in the section. And I was like, Rahul, how would you like to come work in Asia instead of in California? And he was like, oh, wow. And it was just sort of serendipitous. And it came up because we had built the social capital together. And I find a lot of times, and I tell a lot of stories in the book, people get things done at work because, for example, now, even today, I didn't really know Tessa before we got together on this call today. Women's Forum had reached out to me separately. We had a little chat before. And if Tessa were to call and ask me a favor, I would probably do it now or answer a question. It's not like I wouldn't have done it before, but now I know her a little and we have built up some capital, and I'm much more likely to help. So, if you work across boundaries, borders, time zones at work, but you've met somebody somewhere and they say, I'm really sorry, I know it's your nighttime, but I need some help with this client who's really upset about something. You've built that social capital, and it's really much more likely that this other person will help you. So I feel strongly about that. And that social capital goes up, can feed into getting mentors and getting sponsors at work as you show people what you can do and as you help them out.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for those very wise points, speaking to the importance of finding complementary aspects in your career to your passions, and that is a way to develop, and the importance of building that social capital as well. What you just mentioned briefly, the importance of mentoring. Could you speak a little bit more to that experience and what you've learned?
Sure. There are all these different words bandied about. And I think, a mentor to me is somebody who has decided to take you sort of under their wing and help you in your career or help you in your life. And some of those relationships form, or sometimes those relationships form and sometimes they don't. I think if you happen to move around a lot, for example, geographically, you might have somebody who was mentoring you and now doesn't. It's gotten a bit easier with WhatsApp and email and whatever, but a lot of times it used to, I think mentorship tends to happen organically. I must say that for me, if someone comes to me and says, will you mentor me? I get quite nervous. It makes me feel responsible for them. And it's not necessarily something I want to do. I have a couple mentees that I have committed to through various programs. So one is an Afghan refugee who I met when she was at university, and one is an Australian athlete who's an Olympian. And those were both through organizations where they said to me, will you mentor these people and we'll match you? And it's worked out really well in both those cases. But if someone I just knew off the street said, will you mentor me? I was like, well, I don't know if I want that responsibility. I do mentor a lot of other people that haven't come through a program where it's just happened over time. In several cases, they have worked for me, don't anymore, but we've stayed in touch. And then there've been some other avenues. So, and that's different than a sponsor. You do need at work someone who, it's often your boss, the person who's hired you, or somebody you're working for now, who says, you know what? We're going through promotions now. Of course, everybody wants to be promoted. Maybe they won't all be this time. I think it's time for Tessa to be promoted. She's done X, Y, and Z, and I know she's good at it. And, I'm going to make the case for her. That's a sponsor. you need to have a sponsor at work. That you need to build up, I think, through official channels. You may not get a mentor. I think what I came to later in life, and I've read a lot about, I've written a couple articles about, you can look it up, Google, a personal board of directors. I did not come up with the idea. I wish I'd started it earlier in my life, is to say, okay, companies have board of directors, right? Some of you will work for corporates. If you happen to work for Publicis, they have got a board of directors. And the way boards of directors are put together, their main job is to look out for shareholders and to hire and fire the CEO. The management runs the company, but they also help provide strategic guidance. And what happens in modern times is that they try to put together boards of directors who maybe represent a number of industries that are relevant to the company and maybe a number of functions like a lattice, a matrix. So somebody who knows HR, somebody who knows IT, somebody who knows ESG, so that as a whole, the board can provide guidance to the company. So why shouldn't you have that as an individual? Because really, even if you do have a great mentor, and I'm not saying get rid of them, it's only one person. They haven't worked probably across a huge range of industries or a huge range of functions, because we all tend to specialize a little bit. So I'll give you one good story. I know we're running out of time, but I wrote about this in the book too. And in the book or in the articles, there's lots of detail on how you might put together a board of directors. I definitely would not go and say to someone, will you be on my board of directors? They'll have no idea what you're talking about. So I don't think it's that widely used yet. But Susie Nicoletti, who used to work for me at Google and Twitter, at some point before I really knew her, was up for promotion at Google and she didn't get it. And all of her friends, for moral support, which you need for stamina, I talked about that before, said, oh, that's terrible. You should have gotten it. You deserved it. They made a mistake. You're great. But she was also talking to somebody who was older than she was, who she knew from a client outside of Google, who said, yeah, it really is too bad. I think you'd be great. And I think you'll get it eventually. I know that you are a big fan of Google and a big fan of your clients and you're easy to work with, but just a little bit from the outside, if you don't mind my telling you, I think, Susie, when you talk about Google and you talk about work, you just talk about you and Google. I never hear about your team members. I never hear about the broader group. Now, I know you're currently an individual contributor and that's part of it. And I also know you're collaborative, but if I were your manager, I might be just a little concerned that you're not a team player. And so she got that feedback that was just a little bit from a distance from somebody who knew her. And the thing about a board of directors, it's not somebody you just meet once and ask. That person wouldn't have been able to say that to Susie if she'd just gone to have a cup of coffee and said, hey, can I talk to you once? But after getting to know him over time, he had enough insight into her and yet enough distance to give that kind of advice. And I think that that's why you may have a mentor. That's great if you do. If it builds up naturally, fantastic. Even if you do, and specifically if you don't, especially if you don't, I recommend looking into and reading a bit about personal board of directors and starting to build one.
Great. Thank you so much, Aliza. Another brilliant series of advice and anecdotes. And once again, your book, Don't Quit Your Day Job, sounds a very, very interesting read. Thank you so much for joining us today. I believe we don't have any questions currently from our audience members.
I've stunned everybody into silence.
That's it. Well, there were so many amazing anecdotes and examples that maybe we've covered everything. Thank you so, so much for your time. And thank you to everyone that's joined us today. If you have any questions, of course, feel free to reach out to the team and we'll do our best to get back to Aliza on that with some responses. So thank you so much for your time again. And yeah, you've been brilliant. And yes, with that, I hope you have a lovely day.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been terrific being part of the Women's Forum. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everyone.